Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1991. The atmosphere is heavy with the weight of a secret about to be shattered by the police. Officers arrived at a nondescript apartment complex, unaware that they were about to uncover one of history's darkest crimes. The discovery made that summer day would send shockwaves across the entire nation and change the city of Milwaukee forever. The man at the center of this investigation was Jeffrey Dahmer, a name that would soon become synonymous with pure evil. For years, Dahmer had lived among his neighbors, carefully maintaining a facade that allowed him to hide in plain sight. To those living nearby, he was just a quiet, reserved individual who kept to himself and rarely drew any attention. He appeared awkward and unassuming, the kind of person who blends into the background of everyday suburban life. But behind the locked door of apartment 213, a horrific reality was being constructed, far from the eyes of the public. As he grew older, his internal struggles manifested in increasingly troubling behaviors that went largely unnoticed by those around him. After finishing high school, he drifted through life, lacking a sense of purpose or direction in a world he felt detached from. The year 1978 marked a dark turning point when he encountered a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks on a lonely road. This encounter resulted in his first known murder, an act that would set the stage for a decade of violence. For over 10 years, Dahmer continued his lethal activities, constantly refining his methods to avoid detection by the authorities. Victims began to vanish without a trace, leaving families in a state of agonizing uncertainty and searching for answers. Police were often left in the dark, failing to realize that they were hunting a serial predator operating in their midst. What made Dahmer particularly dangerous was his uncanny ability to project an image of normalcy to the outside world. He could appear polite and friendly, projecting a sense of trustworthiness that disarmed those he encountered in public spaces. He often approached young men with seemingly innocent offers, such as money for photographs or a simple drink at his home. These small, calculated gestures were traps, designed to lure unsuspecting victims into his private and dangerous domain. Many accepted his invitations, unaware that they were walking into a situation from which they would never return home. Investigators would later link Dahmer to the tragic murders of 17 young men and boys over a 13-year period. Throughout these years, warning signs were present, yet they were frequently ignored or misinterpreted by those who encountered him. Some victims managed to escape his clutches, providing glimpses into the nightmare that was occurring behind closed doors. Several encounters brought him dangerously close to being apprehended, yet he always managed to slip through the cracks. Systemic failures and missed opportunities by law enforcement allowed his cycle of violence to continue unchecked for far too long. Every time he avoided capture, it meant more lives were put at risk, deepening the tragedy for the victims' families. The momentum of his crimes finally hit a wall on the 22nd of July 1991. In a moment of desperate survival, a man named Tracy Edwards managed to escape from Dahmer's apartment and successfully flagged down police officers on the street. When the officers entered the apartment, they expected to handle a routine dispute, not a scene of unimaginable horror. The interior of the apartment revealed evidence that immediately linked Dahmer to multiple gruesome murders and disappearances. The discovery turned the quiet residence into a massive crime scene, drawing in investigators from across the region. Photographs and human remains were uncovered, providing undeniable proof of the true scale of the atrocities he had committed. The quiet man living next door was finally exposed, and the reality of his double life was laid bare for the world. News of the arrest spread like wildfire across America, leaving the public in a state of disbelief and collective horror. People struggled to comprehend how such a series of crimes could have persisted for so long without being stopped. Families of the victims demanded accountability, seeking justice for the lives that had been so cruelly stolen from them. Communities gathered to mourn the lost, while investigators worked tirelessly to identify victims and reconstruct the timeline of violence. The case forced the nation to engage in difficult conversations about policing, systemic bias, and the protection of marginalized groups. It became clear that institutional failures had played a significant role in allowing the killer to operate for so many years. In 1992, the legal process concluded, with Dahmer being convicted and sentenced to multiple life terms behind bars. His time in prison was short-lived, as he was killed by another inmate in 1994, ending his life abruptly. However, the death of the killer did not bring a sense of closure to the families who had lost their loved ones. The impact of his crimes remained a permanent scar, continuing to affect the families through decades of grief and remembrance. More than 30 years later, the story found a new audience when it was adapted into a major streaming series. The Netflix production, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer Story, brought the chilling details of the case to a new generation. Starring Evan Peters, the series aimed to shift the focus toward the victims and the systemic failures that enabled the killer. Released in 2022, the series quickly became one of the most watched true crime productions in the history of the platform. It sparked intense worldwide discussion, reigniting interest in the details of the investigation and the societal response. The series holds a strong rating on IMDb, reflecting the deep audience engagement with the historical and social themes presented. Viewers were drawn to the narrative, which explored not just the crimes, but the environment that allowed them to flourish. The series remains available to stream, serving as a permanent record of the case for those seeking to understand the history. Looking back, the story of Jeffrey Dahmer stands as one of the darkest and most disturbing chapters in American history. It is a story of a man who appeared perfectly ordinary, masking a predatory nature that was hidden in plain sight. It is also a story of a community that tried to sound the alarm, only to be met with indifference. The tragedy left 17 victims and countless families forever changed, their lives irrevocably altered by his actions. The case serves as a somber reminder of the importance of vigilance and the need to address institutional blind spots. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not found in the pages of fiction or in dark, abandoned forests. They are often found living right next door, blending into the fabric of our daily lives until it is too late. The legacy of this case continues to haunt our collective memory, serving as a cautionary tale for generations to come.